You've been spending a lot of time, and you have too, Chris, with the situation of Iran. I mean, this is unusual because the President of the United States has been saying, diplomacy, diplomacy, give peace a chance. And Democrats in Congress, I didn't think this would never happen if you had a Republican in the White House and Republicans in the Congress, right? They would never be taking on their president the way these Democrats in Congress seem to say, no, we don't want this peace deal. We want more sanctions on Iran. What's going on, Luke? You start.
Well, I think so. There's a bipartisan bill by Senators Mark Kirk and Bob Menendez to add more sanctions to Iran if an interim deal fails. And this has gained the support of almost the entire Republican caucus in the Senate and about 15 Democrats in the Senate, about half of whom are up for close re-elections. What do you see going on is it's an election year, and in addition, the opponents of this deal, Israel and Saudi Arabia, have been lobbying Democrats to support the bill. So what you have is some Democrats who are trying to say, we want to help Obama with this deal, despite the fact that Obama has said the exact opposite. This does not help. Well,
Chris, doesn't it sort of, if you're making a deal with whatever country it is over here, and you say, no, I'm the president, I'm the director in charge of foreign policy, and I can make this deal, and you've got your legislature or your Congress pulling the rug out from under you, it's going to screw things up, right? Or at least has the potential to.
It's probably not necessarily helpful. And you do have a lot of people in Congress that believe that whatever the president says on foreign policy, they want to back him. I mean, we saw this in Syria with John Boehner really getting behind the president, saying, I trust him. He's the commander in chief. Let's wait and see. And he was not one of these bombastic guys. But with Iran here, we're seeing a lot less assuredness or backing behind the president. And like you said, it's bipartisan. Bob Menendez, a Democrat from New Jersey, is a co-author of this sanctions bill. Now, whether Harry Reid, gives it a vote and we see if it passed, that's another thing. But it surely can't be easy for the president to have all of these guys doing that.
A fact here I want to be sure of. So something you said, Luke, the bill would say there would be more sanctions placed on Iran if the interim deal falls through, right?
Right. It would say if an interim deal falls through or Iran walks away. Now, Iran has, the foreign minister has said that if Congress passes more sanctions, then we'll walk away. And you can see from how...
But they won't be applied right away. That's my point, right?
They won't be applied right away, but the very act of this hanging thing could really derail negotiations.
And that's why President Obama has said he would...
Right. He wants to give Iran some breathing room. I mean, there's been so much suspicion between the two countries over the past 30 years.
You also said something interesting. Have we ever seen a case, Chris, like this where the United States, here where the president is trying to adopt a certain policy, and you've got two countries, Israel and Saudi Arabia, who are openly lobbying in the Congress against the president of the United States?
Well, I think we see that in the behind the scenes in a lot of policies. What a lot of people don't know is countries all over the world have American lobbyists here in Washington, D.C. doing their bidding, some of which think about running for president someday on their own. We've seen people lobby for all kinds of countries, friends, and maybe not foe, but not super friends, right? And so,
K Street makes a lot of money off these.
Yes. And these places have a lot of influence here in Washington that I don't think a lot of people are aware of how that really works.
Well, and the president is kind of, exactly, making us aware of it. Now, so this is in the Senate.
Yes.
Now, yesterday, Eric Cantor gets involved in the equation. And how does that play out?
So there was a plan floated by Eric Cantor, I think, to pass the Senate bill in the House verbatim. The House has already passed a much harsher sanctions bill that wouldn't pass the Senate, probably. So they would just pass the Senate bill, and that would assumedly ratchet up the pressure on Harry Reid and Obama to pass the legislation. Now, that may have the effect of backfiring if certain Democrats see it as a partisan move by the GOP House to try to force his hand.
Well, I could see that. I mean, it Bob Menendez to maybe the last thing he wants is for Eric Cantor to come out publicly and say,
right,
I love the Menendez bill.
Right. And I think it's beyond Bob Menendez. There are a lot of kind of moderate to liberal senators backing this, like Michael Bennet and Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut. So if they see Eric Cantor as supporting this, it may give them cold feet because they're already getting a lot of heat from the White House.
Chris, you cover Congress as well. Isn't it really in the hands of Harry Reid? I mean, he can block this, correct?
He has the choice whether or not to put it on the floor. And, of course, lawmakers have their own way of forcing things in, but really in this scenario, the buck pretty much stops with him. The interesting thing about foreign policy is it doesn't necessarily put lawmakers on always traditional party lines. There are certain issues where the Democrats are going to be and the Republicans are going to be. But foreign policy often kind of mixes that together, and we see some crossover where we don't see in a lot of domestic issues. So it's a little more complicated, I think, than just, liberals think this, conservatives think this, and that's the end of it.
Is there any talk about military action in Iran if this deal falls through? I mean, there has been in the past, right? I mean, and Netanyahu famously wanted us to do a military strike against Iran. Is that being talked about anymore?
I don't. I think the United States says it's on the table. I don't think after Iraq and Afghanistan anyone's seriously considering military action against Iran, even though the best case scenario for military action would be to delay Iran's nuclear program for a few months, and then they wouldn't want to negotiate with us at all. So I don't think that's really a serious threat at this point.
I don't think there's any public appetite for it.
Absolutely not. Look at what happened with just thinking about it with Syria, or the possibility of aiding certain military projects. Getting involved with Iran in this way is a whole different matter, and absolutely not. I think you'll have a sustained reaction to that. And I don't think Obama really wants to put forth that effort after working so hard to de-escalate our efforts in Afghanistan and Iraq. The last thing he wants to do is have him go out of his presidency having started another conflict.
And at the briefings, at the White House briefings, which I go to every day, I mean, Jay Carney goes out of his way to say all options are on the table, but then he also quickly adds, but we're not really thinking about a military action. Before we take a break, a related point on this is that John Kerry, more than anybody else, hammered this deal together.
Right.
We have seen Hillary Clinton gets credit for being this outstanding Secretary of State, and she was. But Kerry has upped it to a level of activity in the Middle East, in Syria, in Iran, on global warming, that I think, he's really, I think, proven to be a very aggressive, effective Secretary of State. Is he getting any credit for it?
I don't think he's getting much credit for this Iran deal. I mean, look at how the Congress is treating him. But this is a really historic deal. I mean, Iran has been, and the United States have not talked for 30 years, and it's been the number one goal of U.S. policy to try to de-escalate Iran's nuclear program. And here he's doing it peacefully, which everyone wanted. And now there's a chance for that to work out.
I mean, he could eclipse Hillary in terms of achievements as Secretary of State.
Well, he's had a lot thrown on his plate just since he began.
But he's also been willing to put stuff on his plate, I guess is my point.
We've talked more about foreign policy since Obama was reelected than a lot of other issues. 2013 was full of that, and we didn't see much of that. Everyone was focused on the economy in his first term and everything, and now it's gone to foreign policy. So, I mean, this is really a moment for John Kerry. If he can live up to the moment, he seems to be doing that to really make a mark as Secretary of State.